Coach Jim Gibbons calls me. And he says, this is Jim Gibbons. And I didn't know if it was or not. Like, I couldn't run the chance of hanging up the phone if it was Coach Gibbons. At the same time, to what do I owe this tremendous pleasure? So, I had seen, there's very few things done on wrestling. Can you guys agree? In fact, here, let me just name your favorite wrestling movie. Now, 100% of you either just said Vision Quest or you said, I've never seen anything done on wrestling. That's exactly what you were thinking to yourself. Right? Like, oh God, moving, what's a wrestling movie? What's a wrestling movie? Or you said Vision Quest. Very few things get done. And FLO Wrestling Today, it's dropped. It's a 6-part series. This is my plug. Okay, this is the plug for you guys to go over to FLO Wrestling and watch this. But Coach Gibbons made this. He would be the executive producer. He would be the mind behind it, the brains behind it, the one that pushed, the one that had to deal with all the rejection behind the scenes and gets his piece critiqued 20 different ways, stood up to all of it, and got it to you. And it has to do with a dual meet from 1986. Iowa Hawkeyes versus Iowa State Cyclones. Now, there are very few rivalries left, sadly. Everybody's got this great need to make up. Robert Whitaker and Adesanya are now training together. Wait, can two people please just stay mad at one another? Okay. So, Iowa versus Iowa State is a huge dual meet, and in the world of wrestling, you guys see this in MMA, you can't ever get a damn story. And the reason you can't get a story is this is built in. This came to MMA not through karate or taekwondo. This came to MMA through wrestling. But what happens in the practice room stays in the practice room. You can't get anybody to talk. And we don't right now this second, we don't know who's injured and who's active for Penn State. We don't know who's injured, who's active for Iowa. Just for example, and I bring that up because they're getting ready to duel this week. You can't get info. And if you start talking about it, it's rude. It breaks some kind of a code. Now, this duel between the Hawkeyes, between the Cyclones, Coach Gibbons brought us, it was a public duel. They went down and they had their duel meet. So people have seen it, but guys, that was in 1986. You can't get the guys. You can't get Dresser. You can't get Randall. You can't get Gibbons. You can't get Carr. You can't get these guys to come out and talk about it. And it's a very aggravating thing from my perspective, because the best things that you see in wrestling are not what you see in the duel. You'll see an intensity and a look on a guy's face, and you see this battle, and then you'll see some level of emotion afterwards. Whether the act of emotion is coming out and it's what you might view as poor sportsmanship, or it comes out in the form of what you might view as excitement, or generally speaking, it will come out in what the wrestler tries to portray, which is stoicism. He's neutral. Don't cry when you lose, don't brag when you win. Like, that's a thing in wrestling. Which means be neutral. Don't let the other side know. And that's a belief in wrestling. But because of these things, it's very hard to get a story. It's very hard to get two guys to tell you what happened that night. What happened that I didn't see? What happened leading into this? The hardest opponent that a combat athlete will have, generally speaking, that's a broad stroke, is the scale. That's the battle you'll never hear about. We got a whole television show in the mixed martial arts industry known as a ceremonial weigh-in. It's not even the weigh-in. The weigh-in is so hard and so brutal and gets so little attention that the only show that we have about the weigh-in is not even the weigh-in. It's a ceremonial weigh-in. It's a show. I'm telling you, it's like some of the best drama that you're ever going to have to deal with. But I bring that to you because it took almost 40 years. And thank goodness that it got here. Thank goodness that Coach Gibbons got this done, but I can't imagine what he would have gone through to get this made, to get these guys talking, to get these guys to tell and share their story. And in the world of wrestling, it is a massive who's who. It is going down. It's out. It's out right now. It's a 6-part series. If you're into wrestling, if you like to binge watch, if you want to skip right to the end and find out who won the duel between the Hawks and Iowa in 1986, right now on FLO. Oh, whoa. Let me add one more thing for you. When I talk about rivalries, and I talk about this so great, you got to understand this. You got to understand this point. When I talk about rivalries, and when I talk about things that are so great and they're so important to have, but not enough people celebrate them. Everybody, you got to go get along in life. No, you don't. You do not have to do that. You can have 2 types of energy. You can have positive and negative, and sometimes you're going to have to fight. But the one thing that you've got to really understand, this is a guaranteed blockbuster hit. This is sold out. This is one of the only programs that's ever gotten made on wrestling. It's called The Duel. Iowa and Iowa State, you have to understand this. Don't have to duel. It's one of the key elements that nobody understands. They are not in the same conference. How does that work? How is Iowa and Iowa State not in the same conference? They're not. One was, at the time of this story, in the Big 8. The other was in the Big 10. It's now called the Big 12, and it's called the Big 10. They don't have to meet, per the rules of the NCAA, per the rules of the conference. They don't have to do this. They choose to do this. Keep that in mind. Go over to FLO Wrestling and enjoy the duel.